Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be sharing with you guys this makeup look today that is a simple makeup look that's not necessarily simple. It looks more simple than it actually is. Kind of the purpose of this makeup look today is a combination of a lot of different products and tips and techniques that I've been using lately that I just think have been working really well for me. I kind of think of these as like the makeup tricks and tips that make me look my very best. These are kind of things that flatter my natural features. It looks pretty simple. No eyeshadow palette was used in this look today, just using some of my other face products, but this is by no means super simple. There are a couple different steps in here that we kind of doubled up on products, including a liner technique that I've been loving, a cheek technique that I've been loving, and also something I've been doing with my lips lately that I just think works really well for me. Basically, this is what I've been really into and loving lately. I'm going to share it with you guys today. So I hope you guys are excited. Before we get into the makeup, special welcome if you're new here. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you enjoy this video and I hope that you'll consider subscribing and make sure notification bell is turned on. And with that said, got a lot of makeup to put on, so let's get into it. We're going to start things off with a primer. I'm going to make sure my skin's really nice and hydrated. I'm just going to use a little bit of my Maybelline 4-in-1 Perfector. Just going to rub that in with my clean fingers. Now moving on to foundation. I have a lot of foundations I'm really loving right now. I just want to pick something that's medium coverage. This is a combination that I've been really into lately, in addition to the Kosas foundation, which is a new favorite of mine. But today we're going to use this combination. I have my Flower Beauty Light Illusion along with my Periperra Ink Lasting cover. This is a really liquidy foundation. It kind of reminds me of the Estee Lauder Futurist Hydra Rescue or the L'Oreal Age Perfect Serum Foundation. It's a little bit more lightweight, but it still has good medium coverage. So I'm going to just kind of tap this all over my face, and then we're going to blend it in with a brush today. My foundation brush. This is just a foundation brush from Luxie. And I'm going to run this foundation even on my eyelids. I'm going to use a little bit less concealer underneath my eyes and try and just use my foundation there instead, which is another thing I've been kind of into lately. I don't know if it's just having a more lightweight product around my eyes tends to work a little bit better for me. As long as my dark circles aren't too bad. Sometimes I think it's helpful not to have a heavier coverage concealer underneath my eyes. So I pretty much spread out all of the foundation, and now I'm just taking kind of what's left on the brush and I'm really going around my hairline very carefully. I'm kind of simultaneously blending foundation into my hairline and removing any excess at the same time. I just want to make sure that I don't have any sort of line there of foundation gathering. Super, super important if you want your foundation to look natural, like you're not maybe wearing a lot of foundation. That is the dead giveaway, is the hairline and like around your brows. So just make sure you take your time there. You can do the same thing if you're using a sponge. Just use the back end of your sponge and kind of smudge out those edges. I know that I've showed you guys that tip before, but in case you're new. All right, foundation is on, looks nice and blended. We are gonna apply just a tiny bit of concealer. I'm gonna use my Kosas concealer. Again, I just wanna use this very, very sparingly, only where I need it. A tiny bit right here on the sides of my nose, under my nose, and then I have a little spot that's deep, deep under my skin. Right there is like Helm's Deep, deep. Really hoping that one just goes away and doesn't come to the surface or it's going to be a beast. Oh, I don't get zits like that very often, but once in a while. I know I just said I'm not going to use concealer around my eyes. I'm just using the tiniest bit in that little pocket right there. And this I'm going to blend out with a sponge. I've got a little Wet n Wild sponge right here. Just going to take this, tap it very carefully in those areas. I don't know what Charlie is up to upstairs. I bet what she's doing. She got the Hullabaloo game out this morning. You guys know what Hullabaloo is? It's the one with the little pads on the ground. She's been playing that. She was playing that before school this morning, and I think she wanted to play it again when she got home today, so that's probably why she's like hopping around from pad to pad. Are you touching the piano? You're a winner! Winner, take a bow. If you have kids from like toddler to age 8, that's a great game. Okay. Skin looks perfect, just what I wanted. It's very well covered without it being too heavy. I'm gonna set down a couple areas with a little bit of powder. gonna take my Rimmel Stay Matte right here, got my little kabuki brush, start in the center of my forehead. Mostly my forehead and my eyelids are really what need to be powdered down. And then I'm gonna add a little bit on the sides of my nose as well, because I do have some larger pores right here that this kind of helps with. But I wanna keep the perimeter of my face nice and dewy and glowy. All right, so one of the key steps to this makeup look, well, there's a couple different things. This is kind of like simultaneously a easy looking makeup look that's not necessarily easy. There are some steps that we're kind of like doubling up on or really focusing on. And one of those is the bronzer contour. We're gonna do both a bronzer and a contour. Not something I always do, but it is pretty easy, even though it sounds like an extra step. So I'm gonna take this as my contour today. This is the Sculpting Touch Creamy Contour Stick from Kiko. I have mine in the shade 200. I think it's called Hazelnut. I'm just gonna take a little bit on this little bronzer brush right here. I'm going to do a very, very, very minimal contour just right on the outer like third of my cheekbone. This is gonna be covered up with some bronzer, like regular a warming powder bronzer. So I'm not too worried about the blend here. I'm gonna add a little bit here to the sides of my temples as well. Might even look a little bit stripey initially, but it's gonna kind of peek out from underneath my bronzer and give my face just a little extra shape. Let's also add a little bit here to the side of my nose. Again, not a step I do all the time, but if you have the time to do it, I do think these little steps to kind of help shape your face, give you a little bit of structure, can be helpful, or it can make a difference, a subtle difference. Okay, now on top of that, let's take a bronzer. I'm gonna take my Hourglass bronzer. This one is the shade Luminous Bronze Light. This is a pretty warm bronzer. Again, which is the reason I like this combination. This bronzer on its own can maybe be a little much, but I think in addition to the contouring, really makes your cheeks just look just right. Bit more to the forehead. So we're not going to be using an eyeshadow palette today. We're going to use all three of my cheek products on my eyes. I'm sure you guys have seen other people do this technique. I think I've done it before in a video quite a while ago, but we're going to use my bronzer, the warm one, my Hourglass bronzer, also on my eyes. And I'm going to use my bronzer brush. So we're being pretty loose with this. Not too worried about where we place this. We're just adding a dusting of this right above my lids, just kind of right below my brow bone. Again, we're not worried about creating a lot of shape here. The shape for the eye look is going to come from the eyeliner that we're going to be doing today. So I'm just basically taking a larger brush and applying it in a much more like wide area to make it just look really natural. Now we're going to move to the highlighter next. So this is another thing I have been really loving lately, is using a lot of highlighter, but using a more natural looking highlighter. So I have two that I really love, especially for this. My Laura Mercier, which is what we're gonna be using today. You can do the same thing with the Essence Pure Nude highlighter. I would say even like an Hourglass highlighter, something that's a little bit more subtle, but we're gonna use a large quantity of it. So I'm taking this one. This is again the Laura Mercier Matte Radiance Baked Powder in Highlight 01. I love this stuff. It's very similar to the Essence Pure Nude, just in better packaging. I'm gonna take a good amount of this on my highlighting brush. And we're gonna be pretty generous with this. I'm gonna apply it all down the center of my nose, a little bit even on my forehead, quite a bit here on my cheekbones. I'm even pulling this in a little further than I would. We will be adding a little bit of blush, which is gonna take away some of this. Like if you get too much shine right here where your pores can be larger, when we go in with the blush, it'll kind of help minimize that again. Or you can always go back in with another small layer of powder. This is gonna be very glowy look. Like a naturally glowy look. I'm also gonna take this as kind of my lid shimmer today. So I'm gonna take a good amount of this across my eyelid. Again, with a larger brush, I'm not too worried about being too precise with this. Just concentrating it more on the center of my lid. And don't be afraid to go in with like a few layers of this to really get it to look nice and glowy. Now we're gonna move in to add just a tiny bit of blush. This is something I sometimes do, I sometimes don't. Some days I'll just do the bronzer look, but I do love adding a pop of bright blush. So I would pick something kind of candy apple red. This one right here is a new one I have from Milk Makeup. This is the shade Flip. You could also use Kiss from Persona, would be a great one. Or even Persona's Bubble. The Cheek Dew from ColourPop and Hot Fuss is a favorite of mine. Just gonna take this on a brush. I'm gonna tap a little bit on the back of my hand and then slowly build this up right on the apples of my cheeks, just in like a round circle right there. I'm not gonna pull it back too far. Just want a touch of color right there. Kind of higher up on the apples. Go back to your sponge if you want to blend out the edges, or if you feel like it got a little bit bright. And now I'm going to go back to that same color. Use the same brush again. Take just a tiny bit and just tap that right on this outer edge of my lid. I'm kind of pitching my brush. This one is a little bit more dense and it's a brighter shade, so I don't want to be too wild with it, but I just want a touch of that pink just right here on this outer corner, just to add a little pop of color. Let's move on to the brows. Brows are another like key ingredient to this makeup look. I want a really nice, darker, defined eyebrow, which in general I've just been really into lately, but this is my favorite way to get it that is super, super easy. I just take a little bit of my e.l.f. wax. You could also use the e.l.f. Brow Lift or the ABH Brow Freeze. I'm just gonna brush this through to get my brows to be the shape that I want them to, and then we'll set them and sort of fill them in with a darker colored brow gel. So for this look, I recommend trying something a little darker than what you're used to with your brows. I'm gonna use this one right here. This is the number 3 shade from Uoma Beauty. Their One and Done Brow Pencil. So actually I'm gonna use a tiny bit of the pencil on this first. I just wanna add a tiny bit here below where I have a little bit of sparseness on the underside, and then a tiny bit of sparseness up through the arch. But that is all that I'm adding. Most of the color and shape for my brows is going to come from the brow gel itself. And again, this one is quite dark on me, but it's gonna really make my individual brow hairs stand out, which I'm kind of loving right now. It's a little messy. You have to be patient with it. You kind of have to make sure you have a spoolie on hand. Brush things out. You're probably gonna get some smudging above and below that you can wipe off as you work. But again, I just really like the definition that this gives my brows. It kind of gives them that wet looking brow that I feel like I'm always chasing after. I just love that look in a brow. And my brows aren't naturally, they don't naturally look that way. So it takes some different products for me to get that look. So there we have it. It is a bit darker, but once everything comes together and we have the liner and the mascara on, the lips done, I love what this adds to the finished look. And this brow gel is fantastic. I love it. It's a wetter brow gel. It's not like a more waxy consistency like the ColourPop one or even the Benefit one. Or the e.l.f. one, those ones all have like a soft touch, kind of soft hold. Whereas this one's a little bit more kind of wet, slightly more stiff, but I actually prefer that most of the time. Says the girl who never has a consistent brow routine. I'm always changing up my brow routine. Let's move on to the eyes. So again, with the eyes, we already did the eyeshadow using my face products, but the next component of this makeup look is the eyeliner. We're using my Wet n Wild liner, which I know you guys have seen me use a million times before, but I have a new way of applying this, and then we're also gonna top it with a gel liner to add a little bit of extra depth. So this is what I've been into doing lately. I make sure that my pencil is relatively freshly sharpened. I've got a good amount on the tip. It's nice and sharp and pointed. And then rather than drawing it straight on like this, I'm gonna lay it flat against my eye right here at the outer corner, kind of right above my lash line. And then I just almost pretending as if my liner is like a brush and I'm kind of using the actual wood part of the pencil to kind of smudge and shape and blend out the liner as I'm applying it. It's gonna give you this like perfect angle and also a more smudgy look that I think looks so flattering. If you're someone that struggles with the shape of your eyeliner, number one, I'd recommend this specific liner because it's so easy to manipulate and smudge and kind of work with it. You don't have to have it be precise or perfect, but also just this technique in general, I think, again, I'm lining up with my lash line and following the shape of my lower lash line and kind of pulling it upwards from there. I just use my fingers to kind of shape it out a little bit. If it's looking a little too extreme, you can use your fingers to kind of smudge things out. All right, now we're gonna add a little bit of gel liner on top of that, just right at the lash line, just to add a tiny bit of depth right to the actual lashes, especially because we're not doing anything with shadow to kind of smoke out or define that outer corner. Take a little bit of my Work and Set liner here from Natasha Denona. Any black or deep brown gel liner will do. I prefer black when I'm working with the gel. And I'm just gonna apply this right at the actual lash line and just very, very slightly wing it up. I'm not going quite as far as I did with the pencil liner. Just gonna add a little bit more depth and definition right at the lash line. Basically just on the outer third of the lashes. Hopefully those are even. I kind of feel like this one's pointed that way a little more. Maybe if I tilt my head this way. Now do they look even? Fixed it. All right, now for mascara. So I did already curl my lashes about an hour ago. I'm gonna take my Pat McGrath mascara. I like a good kind of feathery, soft mascara. This is one of my favorite mascaras for a kind of feathery look. It's really good for like full lashes that are a little bit more elongated. So I'm gonna apply this mascara as I normally would, but I'm gonna kind of pull it outwards to kind of elongate my lashes this way rather than straight forward. So I'll apply a little bit in the center as well, and then I just kind of will lightly pull them this direction. And I want to be a little bit lighter on the application on the inner part of my lashes. Still applying it there, I'm just not applying quite as much. And then I'm really going to build it up here on this outer corner, just to emphasize that kind of elongated look that we created with that liner. Super flattering look. If you have naturally more almond shaped eyes, as I kind of do, this is going to help just accentuate that and elongate them. Or if you have larger eyes, I think everyone, it's always flattering to have a more elongated looking eye. It's just a really pretty, feminine, flattering kind of look that I think looks good on anybody. And I'm kind of doing the same thing on the lower lashes. I'm just applying a tiny bit right at the roots. And again, kind of pulling them outwards. Okay, now we're gonna go back into our highlighter. We are gonna highlight my brow bone just a little bit. So I'm gonna take a tiny bit of my highlighter and just pop that right below the arch of my brow. There we go. Look how pretty those eyes are. Love, love that look. I think it's so pretty. Let's move on to the lips, our last step. So lips are gonna be pretty simple. I'm just gonna use a nude lip liner. This one is from LA Girl, Nonstop Nude. Then a nude gloss, I have Praline here from NYX. And then we're gonna use our highlighter in the lip look as well. So first, I'm going to overline just the center of my lips, as I typically do. Also, another thing I've been doing lately is specifically not wiping off any of the foundation left on my lips and just lining on top of it. But once you add the gloss on top, a little bit of highlighter, I think it kind of like adds something to the lip look. It kind of makes your lip gloss a little bit more milky. Smudge that in a little bit. So I'm lightly overlining and then just filling in, not all the way, but just right below my natural lip line. And I'm not drawing anything out here. I like to keep my lips just natural right there. I'm gonna give that a couple seconds to set down. This lip liner is very long wearing, but you do need to give it a minute to kind of set down and soak in. While we are waiting for that, we're gonna go back to my highlighter again, and we're gonna take just that highlighter brush that I used on my face. We're gonna apply a little bit there. We're gonna apply this right to my actual lips in the center. I know it looks weird right now. Once we put the gloss on top, I promise this is gonna come together. Okay, so now that that lip liner is kind of set down, I've got that highlighter on. Maybe I did go a little bit overboard. That's okay. We'll just kind of tap that out. We're gonna take the lip gloss. This is NYX in the shade Praline. Beautiful shade. You guys, I kind of forgot about this gloss until recently. It is stunning. It is a little bit darker, but when we're doing a lighter lip underneath, this looks so good. All right, guys, this is everything together. I just want to take one final look. So I do feel like I need a little bit of color underneath my eyes. We're gonna go back to my bronzer. I'm gonna take just a small eyeshadow brush. It's this one right here, and we're just gonna run a little bit of this underneath. I feel like I I don't know if I did that when I was applying the bronzer, if I really smudged any of that underneath my eye, but I feel like I could use a little bit of color down there. And here we have it. Here's the finished makeup look. I have no idea what to call this. This is kind of like a simple looking makeup look that is not necessarily simple. I know that kind of sounds backwards. Why would you want a simple makeup look that was harder to do, that took more steps? But really the idea behind this look is a makeup look that's just simply flattering, that's not over the top, that's gonna enhance all the right things without making it look overdone. Hopefully that made sense. These are basically just some things that have been working for me lately, tips, techniques, products that I've really been enjoying, and I'm very, very happy with the finished makeup look. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. Hopefully you learned something or got some ideas today. Maybe you guys are already doing some of these steps. If so, let me know down in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you for stopping by today. Hope you guys are all doing well. Let me give you one last reminder. If you have not yet subscribed, make sure to do that before you leave, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye.